When it comes to towing, seeing is believing. That's why Chevy Truck's advanced camera technology offers up to 8 available cameras for 14 unique views, so you can focus on the view that really matters. Chevrolet, together let's drive. Learn more about Chevy Trucks at Chevy.com. Safety or driver assistance features are no substitute for the driver's responsibility to operate the vehicle in a safe manner. Read the vehicle owner's manual for important feature limitations and information.
Right, well, with Andy Rishton here today to talk about the Home Counties Premier League. Andy, one of our successful England 11, who's just been over in Spain and won the European Championships. Andy scored almost 7,500 runs and taken over 340 wickets himself. But he's going to talk about the Home Counties Premier League today. So, end of the season, High Wycombe, they came top quite comfortably, to say the least. They beat Wargrave by 60-odd points into second place. Down at the bottom, Slough, big club, they went down, and Harefield in Middlesex also went down. And Andy's club, Wokingham, I won't say just escaped relegation because they were in third bottom, but they were 29 points clear of Harefield. Simple question, Andy, to get you going, man. Welcome to the pod. Any surprises there in what happened in the season last year?
Yeah, I think you touched on a couple already. So High Wycombe winning by a week, that probably wasn't a big surprise. But good for them to see their strong club, good team. Wargrave coming second was a bit of a surprise. If you look at their team and players, you'd probably suggest it might not, but it's the first year they've been in the league. They were penalised 25 points at the end, but they had to appeal. I think they were penalised 70 points to start the season to finish actually second. And if you added those penalty points back on, it gets a little bit closer.
Yeah.
Like a phenomenal effort for a very young team. A lot of new lads there as well. And I know they'll recruit really well. And then Slough as well to go down. Massive club, really important for both Bucks and Berkshire with our pathway system. A lot of their Colts guys comes through us. So for them to go down it's pretty sad, but hopefully they'll bounce back. And I know that they're a ground in demand really through Bucks and Berkshire as well. So it'd be great to have them back in the fold next couple of years.
Definitely. And across the league, it was quite obvious Slough was the biggest surprise by a long way to see them not just go down, but quite comfortably go down, really, didn't they?
Yeah, I think they might struggle a little bit with availability and creating a team. They've got some good players, but I think maybe the demographic of the team are moving through life a bit further now than potentially 5 years ago when they were really competing.
Yeah.
I know they went down, they came back up this year. They've gone straight back down again, which is a shame to see. But I've no doubt they'll restructure again and come back even stronger.
Brilliant. That's good. So let's have a look at the batters across that league, Hugh. There's some decent numbers in there, isn't there?
There is, yeah. We're on top of my head before we jump to the batters because I'll forget if I don't mention that. But a very close league. You've got obviously Wokingham down third bottom 199 points, and Wargrave second from top 247. So everybody in the middle there really, really bunched together. So you've got a couple of outliers top and bottom, but everyone else, it wouldn't have taken much for Wokingham to be flying up that league. So it's good for next season.
Would that have anything to do with Andy Rishton's availability, do you reckon, Hugh?
Well, we'll
come to that. Yeah. Definitely. Let's have a look at those batters in that league.
Yeah. So top Billy Mead. I've written down Billy Mead for some reason, but Billy Mead top there. 793 runs at 66. Again, fewer games played than some of the Northern Leagues. So these numbers are very, very good. So strike rate of 95 as well for Datchet. Elliot Callis, second for High Wycombe, 702 runs at 50 and striking over 80. AJ Woodland, who is Wycombe as well, he's come up here as Bucks, but Wycombe as well. He's on 675 runs at 48. So there's a couple of real strong batters at the top of the charts for High Wycombe, which one of the reasons why they've done so well. Dan Lincoln Wargrave, 600 runs or 598 at 46. Again, striking at 100. And
that's
then
a low strike rate for Dan.
Yeah, Hayden Russo.
He'll be upset with that.
Hayden Russo at Aston Round, 550 runs at 40. It's these strike rates. I mean, we've seen throughout the summer, with it being a difficult summer, it's been hard for batters to get the strike rates too high. So to have 3 guys in the top 6, we've got Brock Hardy there at 6th, striking at 103. 3 guys basically striking at or near 100 runs per 100 balls is fantastic in this damp summer.
Definitely. I think one of the keys to the league there that I've seen, Andy, is that in the top 7 batters, 4 of them are from High Wycombe. Is that just 100% simply why they won the league in the end?
Yeah, you beat me to it. Absolutely. So to have AJ, Elliott, Brock Hardy, I can't remember the other one.
Teddy Castleton.
You've obviously got 4 lads, 3 minor county players, 1 very good overseas. They have a good wicket at Wycombe, and simply just blew players away. And on the strike rate, the one that will go under the radar because he didn't play 12 games with the highest score of the league was 180. Was Calvin Dickinson. He only batted 12 times, strike rate over 133. I mean, not many people may really have heard of Calvin, but he is an unbelievable talent. He was a pro at Hampshire for a fair little while, and he kind of dipped his toe back into league as and when. As I say, like same with Slough, his life's moving on a bit more. He's got a bit more holidays and other bits planned and work, but that shows just the strength of the league and the strike rates being so high. Just how the leagues are promoting white ball focused cricket or pink balls who play on Saturday to push into minor counties and onwards hopefully onto major counties. Billy Mead's played 16 games for about 16 times, striking 95 and highest score of the league is phenomenal. And he worked really hard, and not many people know this. He has a first class 100 for Kent against Sri Lanka A team last summer. He's got a future in the game if he wants it. And he made his Berkshire debut and held his own in that as well.
I spotted he's been playing Derbyshire 2s, Sussex 2s this summer, Billy Mead. So obviously, being tested out by a number of counties. How old is Billy?
Off the top of my head, I reckon he's 24, maybe older. Okay. Yeah, around that age. Good age. Right, he just knows his game now. Knows his game very well.
And you talked about off camera, we were talking about demographics of how clubs are changing. Has the demographic in the league changed in the past 5 years in terms of these young guns are starting to come through, especially in the batting area?
I think so, absolutely. And I think if you looked at, it'd be an interesting stat to try and find how many players are now getting signed that started in this league 3 or 4 or 5 years ago, 18, 19, 20, that have gone on to play professional cricket. Off the top of my head, Jack Davies, Tom Scriven, obviously 2 Berkshire lads I know relatively well. They've come through the league. And just some decent wickets being prepared, I think, has made a massive difference. We're so blessed with a handful of really good and dedicated groundsmen who looked after well at the clubs they're at. Connor Haddo, for example, Aaron Oram, who's also an umpire in the league, they already cover 4 of the grounds out of the 9, and that alongside just good cricketers and just clubs that are willing to invest in young lads, and now they're seeing the fruits.
And in terms of the junior setups of the clubs across the league, is it generally strong?
Something I have less knowledge in, just because obviously with my work it takes me away from the league and the counties, but I know from a working point of view, we have 7 men's teams. So to even fill any, 77 players on a Saturday, we have to dip into our Colts. 7 men's Saturday teams. And then on a Sunday, we have 1 Sunday and then what's called an Oaks and Acorns. So like a dads and sons, which is really cool. But I know, an example, Jaden Barson, who plays now Berkshire 18s. He's on the academy for Berkshire lads. He's come through the Wokingham age groups and plays for our first team now. And I think if you look at most clubs, that's now the case, which is great to see, right?
So my rough calculations say that to have 7 teams out on a Saturday for Wokingham, that's 77 players, you've got to have a squad of about 140 to 150 to make sure you've got availability throughout the year. I
reckon that's probably half and half men's to lads 15 upwards, or maybe a few more men, maybe 100, maybe 80 men, and the rest you'd say is a cult.
So you're blooding a lot of the under 15, 16, 17s up very quickly in those team 7 down to the 4th 11 or wherever.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's great. It is a changing. When we talk to the Southern Leagues, Hugh, the volume of players is just so much bigger, isn't it, to pick from? But there's so many more clubs as well to turn up at.
Yeah, I suppose. I mean, we're sort of more rural, aren't we? But there's probably more clubs around us than there is in the Southern Leagues. But obviously, just from a purely more open space,
but the depth's there.
But exactly, but you've got the population more concentrated. So these, the more populous clubs in these urban areas or more urban areas are able to build these big teams. But also they need to have the organisation and the club's structures in place to be able to manage it. And that's not an easy thing. So absolutely fantastic for all these teams to be producing and running so many teams and so many juniors.
Yeah, and I'm looking from an outside-in perspective, Andy. it can't be just a coincidence that some of the strongest minor counties, national counties as we're now called, come from that area, because there's so much choice to come from, isn't there?
Yeah, I think you're spot on. We're hugely lucky where we are, obviously in Berkshire, in the home counties on the whole. You get a lot of lads who grow up in the area, move somewhere for work, but then are happy to commute back if that's from universities.
Yeah.
Look at your George Tates of the world, who's Oxfordshire lad who's at Loughborough and travels down. And we mentioned off camera, Tom Hinley obviously travels to East Grinstead, as well as from London once they if they decide to move that way and play. And I think when you haven't got a major county to feed into and to play professional cricket, you look at how you make best of what you've got in the leagues, and then through the minor county or the national county setup. And I think obviously the other one is demographic, us actually being relatively close together as a home county sort of collective, and we play against each other regularly on Saturdays and then on Sundays. The competition's there. It's just an absolute willingness to win. If you look at Oxfordshire in the last handful of years, they've been absolutely brilliant.
Yeah.
And obviously we've kept on our streak as well. So it's been good. And Bucks obviously this year, can't not mention Bucks. They obviously they were brilliant in the Red Bull stuff, come up to Div 1 last year. And you look at it again, it's Callis and Woodland from the previous year, got them load of runs in again this year, and Conor Haddo being MVP with his bowling.
Yeah.
Obviously we play a lot against them on a Saturday, and yeah, it's just really cool. It's really cool to play against each other a lot and to get better.
Which goes back to what Hugh was saying about that gap between second place and the competitiveness of the league's brilliant, isn't it, to say the least. Let's have a look at the overseas guys in the league. I'll ask you, Andy, who stands out for you in terms of the overseas, and we'll look at their numbers.
Brock Hardy, probably first at about High Wycombe, won the league batting middle order, strikes it very clean. From personal experience, he hits it pretty hard. Striking at 110s across the league, and I mean, batting in the middle order, you're never going to be that bloke that scores big hundreds and carries scores upwards from the foundations. But my word, he comes in and injects. So you had him. I think thinking about the leagues, Wargrave obviously had. It's going to break me. Kiwi. Going to really upset me if I don't know it.
We're talking bowler or batsman?
He had to leave. All-rounder. He came in and had to leave slightly early. We got
Ewan Woods at Wargrave in the all-rounders column here. Josh Lincoln.
All-rounder. Oh, you love that.
Well, he's up there. He's up there.
His numbers are really good, actually.
Yeah.
Shouldn't be surprised. His numbers are always good. Good. Nick Kelly, Harefield, can't forget Nick Kelly, Kiwi batter, very good player. Really organised, hard to get out. Also now trying to find him.
No, it's. I was just. We've got Benjamin Labas at the top of the wicket. Is he an overseas? Yeah, so he's hard to pick out sometimes. It's a great name.
Yeah, I don't think he is. I think he counts as a local. I think left arm spinner, good bowler. Yeah, obviously you can't get that many wickets. Not a good bowler, but just his relentless pressure.
Yeah,
doesn't really have doesn't give a batter an out. Yeah, Rowan obviously. Well, not obviously. They won the league last year, which some would say that's a bit of a surprise. But actually, if you see them and play against them, they are a really, really well-run club. Josh Smith, who's their chairman and plays in the first team, he's ex-first team captain, runs a pretty tight ship, and Wes Morrick, their club coach, ex-player as well. They just play as a team. If you ever want an example of how to win matches as a team, just go and watch them on Saturday.
There can't be many Premier League chairmen who play first team cricket. That's a new one for us, Hugh, isn't it?
Wow, there we go.
It's not. I haven't come across it yet. No, that's the first one. So there we go.
Why they're such a good.
Let's we'll come back and forth to the all-rounders and overseas, I'm sure. But in terms of the bowlers, we've got Benjamin Labat at the top. Who else we got there, Hugh?
Well, we've got Mohammed Rizvi, who I think is he Australian? He's played for Australian Universities 11. Apparently, I don't know whether that counts.
We'll go with that. We'll go with that.
I think, but that's probably in this country. So he's played for a lot of teams for a while. So. No, but it doesn't look like he is an overseas. It's hard to pluck out these overseas. So he's stacking 32 wickets. So Benjamin Labas top 36 wickets at 13. Mohammed Rizvi 32 wickets. 36 wickets for Benjamin Labas. 32 wickets for Mohammed Rizvi at 15. Conor Haddo 32 wickets at 15. AJ Woodland, who's turning up in both columns.
That's key.
31 wickets at 16. Tom Nugent and Henley, 31 wickets at 18. So these we haven't. I mean, these are very, very good bowling averages, but In a few of the other leagues, we've seen guys into the 11s and some below.
Single figures, yeah.
So, 13 is absolutely fantastic. But the 15, 16, again, shows you that some good wickets been played on here. We're not, particularly in a difficult summer.
Definitely
it's not been a bowler's paradise from glancing at the stats.
And I think when you can go back to that competitiveness again, the amount of wickets taken in the Premier League are lower than what we've seen in some areas. Yeah. But the amount of runs are also, and there's a real balance, and it looks to be quite an exciting league to play in, Andy.
Yeah, it absolutely is. It's one of those leagues where anyone can knock over anyone on any given Saturday, which is great. I mean, how fun's that to turn up every Saturday and not just think, we're going to get rolled by Wycombe, and actually, anyone can win on their day.
Mm-hmm.
And the grounds is a really interesting point. Obviously, we all know how wet of a summer it was, but I kind of mentioned them already. The groundsmen have been brilliant, and all the grounds are looked after well. Batters, again, mentioned already, the power and the explosiveness and the amount of runs being scored by individuals is massive, and bowlers have found it probably a bit harder than what they're used to pick up these wickets and to get to. I think if you get above 28, getting around the 30 wickets mark regularly, you're doing really well. And AJ, you mentioned being an all-rounder, he's quickly becoming the sort of player to be in the league. Opening batter, can open the bowling, offers everything, fields and slips when he wants to. And obviously I think if I mention Chris Peplow as one of the kind of our greatest spinners we've come across, he's now finding it harder and harder and harder to get wickets, which is again showing strength of the batting and the ability of the wickets to provide a nice place to play.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So the other one I'd pick out there you mentioned was Tom Nugent, consistently in that 30 mark, isn't he, for the last number of years. It's maybe half dozen, even more now, showing his age a bit nuge. Maybe 10 years, I reckon. He's now, maybe since he was 18, 19, to be constantly around the 25 upwards mark is pretty phenomenal effort.
It is. But and one of your colleagues from the England 11's not done bad himself, Mr. Conor Haddo, has he?
Yeah, Con had cheat codes, left-arm spinners. Just, if you were to have a kid, just make sure they throw and bowl left arm. Just a smart cricketer. Mate, just a smart cricketer is Conor. He's very... because he's been in the professional game, he knows his own game very well. He knows what he's good at. He knows not necessarily whether to pile on pressure or to bowl the magic ball. Very clever with his field sets. Just a guy in complete mastery of what he wants or how he knows to go about it. And it's just nice actually to see him getting some reward for the hard work he's put in since he's had a bad shoulder up, I think 5-6 years ago, and he had to leave Northants. And to win obviously MVP of the NCCA 3-day stuff. Yeah, due rewards. And I know that he loved being out in Spain, and he worked really hard out there as well. So hats off to Con. He's been a brilliant cricketer and competitor in the league.
I think, as you say, it's a story that we keep coming back to time and time again, myself and Hugh. These left-arm spinners I used to say they're gold dust, but actually there's quite a lot more of them out there than there used to be. And any club who's got them seems to do bloody well. And they all, a bit like Connor, a bit like Matty Siddle up in the north, they're all bloody competitive as well.
Yeah, they all just want to win. I think if you're a spinner, you've got to have that competitive edge. And if you look at, I don't know, I mentioned James Anderson because he said it on comms a couple of years ago that as a medium pacer, I haven't got a bouncer, I haven't got, the fast, quick pace of a Mark Wood. And as a spinner, you're the same. You just lolly drop it on a spot or spin it on a spot, I suppose. Being a bit harsh.
Yeah.
And you're waiting for a mistake. And if you haven't got that competitive edge, you've got to make all the wins you can. And that 1%ers, if you're competitive and you're, fight, you're in the fight and you want the win, which Connor and Matt Siddle, you mentioned, definitely does. It's just something else over a batter that doesn't necessarily always want to be there, or you can make a pretty hard place to bat sometimes if you're in and around them.
Definitely. And in the home counties Prem, would you say the league is very much a spin heavy league in terms of competitiveness, or is it a pace league and that's why the batters are hitting it so hard? It's
a really good question.
We try.
I'm just going to look down looking down the teams I've got on my iPad. Every team has got an out and out seamer, minimum one, if not two, and every team's got a frontline spinner. So I don't know if that means obviously spin works and gets loads of wickets, but every team needs a seamer to apply pressure whenever they can. And I wouldn't say it's either which way dominant. I would say I'll caveat that with it depends where you play. So if you looked at the number of runs scored at Datchet compared to Wokingham, we're quite a big, slow outfield ground. Datchet's a very, very small, vacuum of an outfield. Spinners tend to go for more runs there, but equally with more wickets because it's that risk-free reward. And team is at Wokingham might get a little bit more out of it because batters trying to hit it a bit harder and from day to day because the outfield's bigger and longer. Yeah, I wouldn't place my finger on whichever way it would flip. I suppose it depends. I'd say it depends where you play.
So I think one of the other issues that we come across constantly is my favourite subject, full stop, end of story. It's the format that gets played that dictates how clubs build their teams. And you have this quite unique one, in my opinion, where you play 50 over games the first 5 of the last 4 games of the season, and then you play timed games for the middle 9. So from a coaching staff perspective, building a squad to do both is literally like building a test squad and a 50 over squad and trying to meld them together, can't you?
Yeah, you're spot on. It's unique. I think it's brilliant. I think if you flipped a coin and, whichever way it landed, it would sum up how the players also think about it. It's 50 of which one you prefer. Who, do you like how the leagues run? And considering we only feed into minor counties or national counties, sorry, I keep making that mistake, national counties at this stage who play T20s, 1 days and then 3-day cricket, It actually feeds really well with that timing stuff. So the pink ball went up until, what's that, gets to the start of June. Perfect. Well, that's T20s and 1 days through. And then by the middle way of the season, we get into the red ball stuff on a national county on a Sunday. So great, you've had 4 weeks to practice for that. Yeah. And I think that could be a good reason why it's geared that way. But in terms of building a squad, you're absolutely right. You just need versatile cricketers. And also clubs need to be really transparent and aware that someone might play 9 games for first team a year and 9 for second team, depending which format that's going to be. From a bowling point of view, obviously, it's just 2 different formats and 2 different games. And you've got to get yourself in that, if that's training, or got to get yourself in that mindset where sometimes none for 30 is as good as anything in a white and a pink ball game. And if you're going to bowl more overs, get your body ready for that.
No, most definitely. And I think that'll be an interesting one, Hugh, as we go through the forthcoming season, looking at where the successes in the NCCA are versus the league format that these guys play in, because in our own league, it's a win-lose, full stop, 50-50. 50 overs, win-lose, done, that's it. So the guys don't get any timed game practice. Whereas NCCA, you've got to be able to do all 3 formats. There's no 2 ways about it. And you're getting to do that right throughout the season. So that's quite an interesting one for us to look at through the season in terms of those stats, I think, Hugh, isn't it?
Yeah, I think there's a fair few leagues who are doing the split, particularly early season. The Norfolk Prem doing it, or East Anglia Premier League, they're doing it, and North East Premier League, I think, do it as well. It's just they don't. It's hard to pick out. I know the Hertfordshire League actually run 2 separate leagues. It's 2 separate leagues registered on Play Cricket, but a lot of them just sort of marked on a scorecard somewhere. But I think it's less unusual than you think. Whether it's something that teams are going to move towards or teams are moving away from is the question. Yeah, it's an interesting one, that, and we'll see. I wonder how much, say in our local league, the Derbyshire League, whether teams maybe would like to take that option.
The question for Andy is the one that I ask everyone now. If you had a format to play tomorrow, you've only got 1 game to play. Is it T10, T20, 50, or are you going to start a 3-day game?
The cricketer in me said a 3-day because you get 2 chances to get a run. which for me is really important. If you look at anything I did in August, it's a really hard question. I absolutely love the 50 over comp. Really fortunate to have some success in that and a good team. So that's probably the one I'd go towards. If I play one tomorrow, it'd be a 50 over game because your skill levels are being tested along a long enough time period that tends to happen. The best skill will always prevail. Yeah. As opposed to T10, you saw our in Spain. It's just a brutal game. Yeah, not one for the faint of heart. And T20 again, one person can. We saw finals day in the national counties where Niels Precy just absolutely blasts us away. Yeah. With his phenomenal ball striking, again, that's where just hats off to the lad that had the day out in the sun. So yeah, 50 over stuff.
The one thing that we've talked about very briefly is the fact that all-rounders need to be really critical in your league. So should you have a look at those top all-round performances, Hugh?
Yeah, don't jump into the all-rounders, depending on what you class as an all-rounder. But AJ Woodland is the top in my half-baked analysis. 600 runs, nearly 700 runs at 48 and 31 wickets. Then you've got Ewan Woods, 428 runs and 29 wickets. Ben Labas, who, he counts, he's got 170 runs there, 36 wickets. Mohammed Rizvi, 237 runs at 23 and then 32 wickets at 15 as well. And then number 5, Sean Khan, Wokingham, 353 runs at 30 and 24 wickets at 22. So there's the top 5 there. But yeah, I mean, in terms of league winning, you see it when we've done these programs, you see that the all-rounders, the guys, if a club's got one of the top all-rounders in the league, they're generally towards the top of the league. It's very rare that they're, one-man teams. You can build teams around these kind of players.
Definitely. The one name that wasn't picked out there in terms of what we'd call a pure all-rounder, but we can't not really mention him, is Mr. Dan Lincoln. He's critical as a wicketkeeper in terms of that sort of all-rounderness, and Hughes a wicketkeeper himself. So, he said, Dan scored big runs in the league as well as what he's done throughout the NCCA last year. And I think he came second in the catches for the league as well. That's just as critical these days now, isn't it? Have that sort of level of all-rounder.
Yeah, I think you beat me to it. I was going to mention Dan. But also
we had to, because otherwise we get in trouble.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I'd definitely get in trouble. No, so you beat me to it. I think it's all well and good saying, well, your AJ Woodlands and your Labasses of the world, but equally, if you look at Datchet Calvin Dickinson, who's a frontline keeper, I know he's shared it a little bit this year in his mixed availability. Callum Russell from Aston Rowan, obviously Dan Lincoln. If you have a good keeper who doesn't drop a thing and is able to contribute with the bat, I mean, that's too skilled, which is all the balance of your team is that much easier. And then if you ship in an all-rounder as an overseas, or you manage to get an AJ Woodland-esque player as well, all of a sudden the balance of the team is that much easier. And it's so important. It's so important for club cricket to have that, because then it also frees up, we were speaking earlier about youngsters and Colts, and it frees up that number 6, 7, 8 batting spot for someone that not necessarily is going to bowl, but is going to need that changing room experience for the next couple of years to then push himself onwards in the game, if that's a club, minor count, national county, or just into a major county. I think it's really important. Yeah, for sure.
Definitely. Well, you give me a bit of a Radio 5 link there, which I thank you for, Andy, because the next question we always like to ask about is those youngsters and those emerging talents coming through. Who would you put your finger on, and names for us to look out for in 2024 in particular, in the future, throughout the league? Batters, bowlers, whoever you think.
Really good question. Local Wokingham lad, mentioned him slightly before. Sorry, I mentioned him a little bit before. Jane Barson, he's Berkshire 18 lad. He's had good experience in our Wokingham side. I think he's going to go from strength to strength. Not so young anymore, but Johnny Connell, Henley, opening batter. He's at Exeter Uni. Obviously another Berkshire lad. I'll move away from Berkshire shortly, I promise. Moving down the teams, there's a seaman that plays for High Wycombe that played a handful of games. I can't remember his name, which is bad of me. I think he's going to be pretty good, like pretty raw seamer. Other youngsters, Hayden Rousseau at Rowan, he'll be upset for me calling him a youngster, but he's only 20, 21. And I think if you're looking at actually what young is these days, like in cricket, I think he's a batter. And I think he's one more year away from making full British consistency, coming over from South Africa as an overseas a few years ago and has stayed. He could be very, very good as well. He scored big runs.
Well, he's fourth on the list of highest scores, Hayden Rousseau, with 152 not off 171 balls. Yeah, so terrific performance there. We haven't actually touched on the top scores. With Calvin Dickinson was top score, 180 off 97 balls.
I think I was chasing about 400 and they got it in that 5-0 spare. Amazing game.
They're chasing 361. Yeah, 361.
There we go.
So yeah, terrific performance. Yeah, there's a few big scores. So that was one of the biggest scores in the country this year at the top there. But the one I was going to mention actually is Lloyd Sabin. Who is popped up on a few of these stats over the last few years. Been around a while, I think. And but Banbury, but 47 runs and 6 wickets in a game. So I think he needs a shout out for that. Terrific.
Terrific wickets as well for Lloyd. Just turning his arm over these days. Yeah, Lloyd's a stalwart for Banbury. Real. I can't call him a veteran because he's not much older than me, but he's someone that's been in the league now for.
I call him. He's a play cricket veteron. I can look at his stats and they go all the way back. There we go. So I've got plenty of play cricket veterans. So there you go.
He's not BPC. He's not before play cricket like I would be.
No, that's right. Yeah,
definitely. In terms of that sort of the inverted commas veterans. Is there a real general change coming in being such a competitive league that everyone is looking for that next new big thing in the home counties Premier League?
Yeah, I think so. I think strength in the national county, especially Berkshire and Oxfordshire now, the links they've got with major counties. So we often don't see them until the back end.
Yeah.
If that makes sense. I think one I'd mention would be probably the best part of now 10 years ago, Martin Anderson played at Reading. He was on the Middlesex Academy, was pushed that way, and we've seen him have some success in the professional game. But he was probably the one that you'd all look at 18, 19 years on and go, well, yeah, no, that's definitely going to be a pro in the making. Trying to think around the scores now. I think you make a good point in the demographic moving on. I think now your previous, I think Chris Peplow, probably now one of the older ones in the league. Obviously, Wokingham with mixed availability. Hopefully, he's got another year in him. Fingers crossed. Wes Morrick, I mentioned already, he retired kind of last year and still sort of manages the rowing coaching stuff.
Yeah.
Like real veteran of the game. And I think now we're at the stage where each club has probably got one or two guys coming up through that have real potential and excitement, and which is why they need those. You mentioned already the all-rounders, the good wicket keepers and batters that give them the chance to really go for it.
Definitely.
I hope that kind of answers your question.
Yeah, most definitely.
Vague, but
we're starting to see a little bit of a trend, I think, across Premier Leagues around the country. There's more money involved in Premier Leagues without a shadow. There's more sponsorship coming in, and as a consequence, there's more attraction for players to go to those places, isn't there? And I think straight away that means that we are going to see a little bit of a demographic move over the next 5 to 10 years in cricket generally, because there's a guard change, isn't there? And I know at my own club we've got All-Stars and Dynamos cricket players who are just about going to go into under-13s now. And all of a sudden, a year later, they could be playing in second 11, third 11 cricket. That's a massive change from 10 years ago. So I think it is going to change. Thoughts on next season, Andy? We're recording this on a very cold, wet and windy November day. You've just had a couple of weeks basking in the sunshine in Spain. That's what European cricket people think is. It was a bit harder than that. We'll come to that. Can you see much in the way of change in terms of your own club or in terms of signings during the winter?
Yes. Before I do, I remember the Wargrove overseas. Xavier Bartlett, I think New Zealand Day.
Yeah,
unbelievable rocket bolts and whacked it. That was one of the overseas who's nodded at me again.
There you go. Thank you.
It's a really good question. Listen, I can't give loads away because it needs to be done through the right channels. But I think club cricket in the home counties there's a lot of movement inside the league year on year, and I think a handful of that isn't necessarily high end players. I think a lot of that is just guys finding the right clubs to play out for their own social Saturdays, which is so important. And funnily enough, the guys that move there to better their own, to better their lives, make their lives more convenient or whatever it might be, they'll play better because they're happier and they're enjoying it more. In terms of moving, we've made a couple of good signings. We're going to lose a couple of players. That's the way it goes. I think I wouldn't say we're better off because of the lads that are leaving. Obviously, it's a shame, but we're going to gain some real experience. And I know Walgrave are going to be doing the same. Everyone's on a recruiting hike this time of year. And look at the big guys. The one to watch would be the guys coming up in the league. So Oxford Downs and Great Brickhill, who performed really well last year in the sort of Div 1 feeder league. Yeah. I know Oxford Downs have signed a very handy overseas. Saw on social media that a couple of weeks ago. And Great Brickhill are sort of led by, I think their coach is Johnny Cato, obviously Oxfordshire legend in his own right. So they'll look to recruit and get the right players in, and there'll be lots of movement. There's always lots of movement. It's really exciting actually, the league that we're in, because people stay in the league and just go play at different teams.
Definitely. And I think the one thing that social media has done for all cricket generally, but Premier League cricket especially, is it does build that bit of excitement around these movements now. 10, 20 years ago in particular, you'd find out in the newspaper 2 weeks later that someone's moved. Now we can actually make something of it. And then all of a sudden clubs are going, well, there's an element of not just keeping up with the Joneses, but actually can we outdo the Joneses all the time?
Yeah, absolutely. It's just that instant access to the information, and also instant access to players. You can DM and get hold of someone's number in no time at all, which is pretty cool, right? Because it just makes things more exciting.
Definitely. Hey, it would be remiss of us not to talk briefly about what happened over in Spain over the last couple of weeks. You're a 2-time winner of the European Championships now. How can I put it? We didn't start quite as quickly as we potentially wanted to, but boy, did we get into that tournament and really the class stood at the end. Is that how you felt it amongst the squad?
Yeah, absolutely. Speaking to obviously Dan and Lambo Logues and Bevs, and even Richard Edwards, every year it's just a different vibe, and it's never a bad one. It's just different. If that's a harder or a bit tougher, and those are two very different things as well, especially when it comes to sort of European cricket and T10 cricket. The ECN run it brilliantly. You've got to shout out to them. They're a little bit, they run by Dan Weston, and from the moment you land, it's just, you're looked after. It's definitely different. It's never easy to start. We had 9 new lads coming. I think last year we had 6 new lads that came, and they found it tough. We got 9 to try and not coach or not teach but just sort of guide in how this cricket works. And fair hats off to every single one that came. They did their research before. We had lots of meetings, we had lots of bit of training, watching a lot of the qualifiers before we went out. And effectively is just free license. Whatever it is, if you're a bowler, every ball's different. If it goes for 6, just make sure the next one doesn't. And there's a batter. how many can he get out the screws? And yeah, it was hard. It was tough. It was a long 2 weeks for any tour and that intense as well. It's a tough 2 weeks, and lads definitely felt that. But you're right. By the time we got to that sort of finals week, we were cooking and ready to go.
Yeah.
But it was good, Look back to the Wednesday we qualified. We lost to Switzerland. We didn't just lose either. If you watch that game back, we got absolutely hammered.
Yeah.
And we had messages and people say, well, how do you lose to Switzerland? People saying they're a dangerous batting line. That absolute white noise to anyone that's sort of playing any sport. And that's just the nature of it. There's no easy game. We were in their backyard. They play this sort of irregularly, this format of cricket on Astros with short boundaries, with white balls that fly like golf balls. And that's just the nature of it. But it was hard to get into, and the guys did so well. And Lambo and Logues led brilliantly. Obviously, Dan does his thing on the pitch, second to none. And I can't speak high enough of anyone that went out there, and anyone that was out there with any other team. It was great.
Well, I think one of the least shocked people watching the games from afar was me when Switzerland beat you, because Vinny Sandu had said to me pre-tournament that they were his dark horses. And that was because obviously he follows European cricket week in, week out. He sees the quality that's coming through. And he said Switzerland were going to make some, what would you describe it? It was going to cause a shock or two. And they did in that game, but it was probably a good thing for you. It gave you that little bit of we're not totally invincible, because everyone thinks that England go out there being invincible full stop, don't they? But it meant you came back from it just stronger, to say the least, didn't you?
Absolutely. It was actually really interesting on that day. You kind of get a bit of a gut feeling. I was speaking to Lambo, and I said a couple of the lads that had been before, and the absolute honesty is you're going to mess up. You're going to hiccup or hit a roadblock, or equally someone else on the other team is going to have a day out at some point. Just make sure it's not that one game on the Wednesday afternoon or the one game the following Friday.
Yeah.
And the truth was, when it happened, a few of us were quite happy about it.
Yeah.
And that's the honest truth. You can sit here now and say that pretty honestly. We're happy with that's the one we messed up and made sure that it didn't happen again. And even Malta, Malta were brilliant. The following week when Scotland didn't get through, Portugal, and obviously Germany, these teams that just come out and like hugely talented ball strikers and bowlers, and that's why it's so exciting.
Definitely. So the big question is, are you going to go back next year if picked?
With my fiance around the corner are listening, and I probably can't say yes, but I need to get picked. That's the first thing. And listen, I think 3 times is enough for anyone to go out there and face that absolute agonising heart rate throughout those games. It would be a privilege to be selected again, and what will be. If I don't go, I don't go. Wish the lads best of luck, and if I go, I'll give it my best again. Yeah, as I say, 3 times is definitely enough for anyone to do that.
I suppose the final question for me, a little bit around European cricket, but cricket in general for you, Andy. You played a lot of bloody cricket this season. If you go back to April all the way through to end of October almost, how on earth have you got through all of that lot? Apart from having a very, very, very nice fiancée, clearly very understanding.
Yeah, she's very understanding. It's a tough one. I'm really lucky. We said offline that I'm a teacher. I get to work in schools and teach sport. And being around that, you've got a constant buzz. And even if you have a bad day, you're just always looking forward to either training or batting or bowling or teaching, whatever it might be. And I think there's just a genuine passion for the game and for growth. And it's what's sort of kept my fire alight has been the growth. And if that's whether a club I've moved to from Henley to Wokingham, I've absolutely loved that. If that's playing for Berkshire and seeing young lads now coming through, playing my 100th game and still playing with new lads on a Sunday that absolutely deserve to be there and perform and go on to a professional game, or going to Spain and playing with a totally new bunch of lads that now I will know forever. That's at the end of the day, that's what cricket is just brilliant for, and creating those memories, friendships, and times of, hard, tough times that you learn from. I think that's probably what keeps me going, and it won't be forever. You're a long time retired, as Dan Lincoln tells me. You're a long time retired, so make it all count while you can.
Definitely. I think you've just probably written the trailer for this podcast episode. It just absolutely sums up what we think cricket's all about, and it's why we do what we do, Hugh, isn't it?
Well, we don't do it as well as these guys do, I suppose, and probably never did.
The podcast,
on the cricket.
Yeah, most definitely. Hey, Andy, it's been an absolute pleasure talking about home counties Premier League and having a little bit of a European cricket chat at the end there. Hopefully we'll keep in touch during next season. We're going to be doing this every week. We want to see what's going on around the country in the Premier League, and we're going to be following the NCCA, as we said, very closely. I think there's a huge amount of bloody good cricket, no two ways about it, to get through there. So look forward to catching up with you again next year.
Brilliant, guys. Thanks so much for having me on. It's been a pleasure, and thanks for looking after me.
Cheers, Andy.
Cheers, Andy.
Thanks for listening to the Premier League Cricket Show. If you haven't already, make sure to hit that subscribe button so you don't miss out on future episodes and stay updated on all the latest news, views and discussions from around the cricket's Premier Leagues. And be sure to follow us on X, formerly known as Twitter, and Instagram at TPL Cricket Show on both. Join the conversation, share your thoughts and connect with us and your fellow Premier League cricket fans. And hey, if you enjoyed the show, why not show us some love? Leave us a 5-star review on your favourite podcast platform, as it helps other potential listeners to find us when they're searching for cricketing podcasts. Thanks again for being part of the Premier League Cricket Show family, and until next time, have a good one.
This podcast is part of the Sports Social Podcast Network.